And we're live. Welcome back to CAD Live. It's another week. It's Monday, the 26th of October. And today we are discussing kinky sex game, or perhaps that should be kinky sex games, dating on the BDSM and fetish scene. And I wanted to discuss this really for a couple of reasons. The first reason is that I've written a book on this, right? I've got a book on this called 50 Shades of Game, Volume 1, which has been out for a couple of years. It's on Amazon. And this isn't just a big advertorial for that book, but, you know, this is something that I've covered and I've covered quite extensively in my material. So I wanted to do a video for that reason. I've been thinking about this for a while, actually, because I feel like I've got all these books. I've got like 11 books on dating and the dating marketplace and game and countless articles. And I feel like on these shows, it would be kind of worthwhile for me to talk a bit about the books each in turn, so that you can get an idea of what's in them if you aren't aware, the work that I've done prior to doing videos on YouTube, etc., etc. And plus, this whole BDSM fetish thing, fascinating area, just really, really fascinating from a psychological point of view, from a dating point of view, etc., etc. The other reason I'm covering it, though, is that some dorks on some little channel whose name I forget made a video about me. Somebody sent me this at the weekend. They made a video about me, exposing me for knowing about or being into the BDSM stroke fetish scene. Oh my God, they exposed me. Obviously, these people are not very intelligent. They didn't do their research. They didn't bother to find out the fact that I've actually written about this stuff extensively. I've written about it on my blog. I've written about it in this book, 50 Shades of Game, Volume 1. I've tweeted about it a load of times. It's something that's really kind of central, really, to a lot of the work I've done over the last few years, and it's something actually that's been central to my dating life as well. But as I say, we're not dealing with intelligent people here, and so obviously they weren't aware of that. So they made this video, kind of trying to expose me, etc., etc. So I thought it would be a good way to basically publicize the book, and also to talk about, as I say, an area that is really, really very interesting. Before we go into the meat and drink of this, though, do remember to subscribe to the channel. If you want to do so, hit the red button below. Also, hit the notifications bell. Also, as well, get onto my free daily email list if you're not already, because I send out free email most days of the week, Monday to Friday, unless something else has come on that's pressing. So get onto that. It's a really great way for us to keep in touch. And if you want to get 50 Shades of Game, which is what we're going to be talking about today, the link is below for that in the description. The other thing that I just have to say, and apologies if you're watching this on replay, but for those of you who have come to this live, or who are coming to this broadcast live, this is slightly early today. Our normal time is 11:30 a.m. EST. Today, we're at the earlier time of, and God, I've forgotten all my, I think it's 9:30, 9, 10, 11, 12, 10:30 a.m. EST. We're going live. And the reason for that, and the reason that I was unable to work that out momentarily, was because we've just changed the clocks in the UK. So we're we're 4 hours difference rather than 5 hours difference with the US. But the reason for this is because I am going to be going across town after I finish this, and I'm going to be doing an interview with James Tusk, the day game guy. So you may have seen me interview James Tusk on this channel a few weeks back. Check out the video if you haven't. It was a really, really great conversation. He's returning the favor. I'm going to get interviewed by him. We're doing a live stream. It's going to run on his channel, which is called James Tusk, I think. So so do check that out. But that's the reason we're early today. The normal time is 11:30 a.m. EST, which will be the time we go live on Wednesday and also on Friday this week. Anyway, enough of all of that. Let's get that boring stuff out of the way. Let's talk about BDSM, fetish, all of that kind of thing, and how it applies to dating. Now, the first thing that you might be thinking is, all of that stuff sounds really weird. I'm not into that stuff. This is not going to apply to me. Well, it might be the case that that is not an area that you are currently into. And I can quite understand that. I mean, this is not, you know, this is an acquired taste, let's say. But bear with me and hear me out, because there are a number of things that make this a really, really interesting area. Primarily, though, really, because this is about sexuality and this is about female sexuality. And let's not forget that one of the greatest, in terms of sales, but not in terms of literary quality, but in terms of sales, one of the greatest successes in books over the last, 10, 15 years or more has been, of course, 50 Shades of Grey, the book 50 Shades of Grey, and then the movie franchise that came as a result of that, which is all about a young woman meeting a guy who is, yes, very good looking, very rich, etc., but he's also a guy who is into BDSM fetish and who dominates her sexually in a consensual but very sexy for the women way. Okay, and that is a key thing. And what we're going to be talking about as we get into this is the real life fetish scene, if you like, in clubs in Europe, places like Torture Garden in London, and also Kit Kat Club in Berlin. And one thing I can tell you now is that those places and places like that saw exponential success after the publication of 50 Shades of Grey. And what was perhaps before something of a niche kind of an area, something of a niche interest, this thing of this bondage, this fetish underworld, if you like, became, certainly in London and certainly in Berlin and certainly in other places around Europe, and most of my experience with this is in Europe, but I'm aware that there are clubs and parties and things in the United States and elsewhere as well. But certainly in Europe, this became something approaching mainstream in the big cities. And the reason for that was that lots and lots of young women became aware that this was a really exciting and sexy and fun way that they could explore their sexuality. And so, and then guys obviously cottoned on to this fact. And so you got lots of guys then attending these parties in order to meet and hook up with these young women in a consensual, but, sexy kind of a fun environment. And a good time was had by all. Now, of course, the restrictions because of the virus have pretty much, put the kibosh on all of this at the moment. But, let's see what happens. Let's see, as hopefully this thing starts to dissipate and maybe the vaccine's found or whatever's going to happen, hopefully we'll start to get the scene back. But I mean, for the bulk of this year, there's been nothing. But yeah, I mean, prior to this year, taking this year out as an anomaly, in London, Torture Garden, which is we'll talk about this in a minute, but is the premier sort of fetish BDSM club in London, absolutely rammed. The party would take place once a month, sometimes slightly more than once a month, but there or thereabouts. And there were queues round the block for this party for years. And I was attending certainly since about 2007, 2008. No, maybe it was 2006, actually, but it was thereabouts of that time. All the way through. And for years, those parties were absolutely rammed. Okay. And the same thing is also true in Berlin as well. So people who watch this channel, who've consumed my content, probably know that I spend a lot of time in Berlin. I've got friends over there, etc. And one of the things, I mean, there are many things that are cool about Berlin, but one of the things that's always fascinated me with Berlin is how off the hook the nightclub scene is. And part of that nightclub scene is the fetish BDSM party scene. So in Berlin, you've actually got a bigger scene dedicated to this than in London. You've got a club called Kit Kat Club, which is a weekly big party where people go and they're all dressed up in funny clothes and sometimes not very much clothes at all. And lots of naughtiness and fun goes down there. There's also a place called Insomnia, which again has several parties every week dedicated to BDSM, to fetish, to people meeting up and spanking each other and having a good time. And then there are various other parties that take place on a more like monthly basis. There's also Torture Garden, which had started to operate in Berlin just before the onset of the virus. So in Europe, this is a really, really big thing. Okay. And what I need to try and get across to you guys before we really get into this is that the sort of crowds that you're talking about at these parties are not what you might think. And I'll do a little share screen now where I'll just show you a picture from showing you a little bit of the sort of crowd that you would get at Torture Garden. Okay, so if you look at that, there you go. Okay, so if you look at that, these are all images taken from Torture Garden, and as you can see, what we basically have here are a bunch of young women kind of wearing underwear, up for a very good time indeed. Okay, now one of the criticisms that frequently gets leveled against this kind of scene, this kind of fetish BDSM scene, is like, oh well, you know, it's all like, you know, weird, like aging middle-aged swingers, and they're all disgusting and blah blah blah. My experience in the places that I've been to, and as I said, I mean, I've tended to go to these European clubs, has been the opposite of that. What you get actually is a bunch of very, very attractive young women who are there in order to experiment and to have a good time. And you can see some of the pictures here. Now, Sabir says not true for Berlin, but have you been to Kit Kat Club? Because if you go to Kit Kat Club, very, very similar vibe to this. And Kit Kat is big. Kit Kat is very, very big. Every Saturday night, going into Sunday morning, and then through the day on Sunday. Very, very similar crowd to this. I've also been to places in Croatia, Prague. There's a scene, Budapest, etc. And as I say, there is an adherence of these kind of youthful party goers. That is to say, women and men in their 20s, early 30s, etc., going to have fun and to meet one another in this sexually uninhibited environment. All of which has been ruined by the virus. Sabir says, no, I meant to agree. I see what you mean. So sorry. What you're saying is this perception that these parties, these clubs are just filled with ugly aging people is not the case. And you're right. It certainly isn't the case in Berlin. Certainly not the case in London. And even places like Paris. I mean, all of the big cities in Europe certainly have parties like this. But as I say, I think the biggest are these ones in London and Berlin. So let me now go back through memory lane and tell you a little bit about how I first got into this, or how I first became aware of this. Now, I mean, I've always been reasonably, for a start, I was always massively into nightlife. That's the first thing to say. I was always into clubbing anyway. I love dance music. I love techno, house music, the night scene in general, all of that kind of stuff. That was my bread and butter. You know, a lot of the time now, people, because I work with people like James Tusk and Tom Torero, people think that I'm a day game kind of nerd. Not that those guys are nerds, but you know what I mean. They think that I'm all about day game. And day game is fantastic. Don't get me wrong. I love it. And it probably is my default modus operandi these days, because, you know, when you get to my age, you're not going to the clubs as much. But back in the day, I was all about the clubs. I was all about the parties. I was all about the music. I was all about meeting women, having these crazy, fantastic experiences in nightlife. And so as an extension of that, the BDSM fetishy scene was sort of like an add-on to that. And basically what happened was this. When I came to London back in 2004, 2005, I moved back to London from where I was living in the north. And I've told this story before, I quickly became involved with the dating scene down here, or at least I should say the game scene, if you like. People who were into game, people who were studying this stuff as a discipline, if you like. And I joined a forum in London that no longer exists, but it was very popular back in the day, about 15 years ago or so, called the London Seduction Society, which is maybe a slightly comical name, but it was called the London Seduction Society. And it was a forum from a website, and you had to register. You actually had to email them some details about yourself first before they let you in. It was very sort of clandestine. But I'd read the game. the book by Neil Strauss, which I'd really enjoyed. I thought there was something here that I could learn and could perhaps be useful for my development. And then I found this forum, this London Seduction Society. So I thought, right, I'll join that. So I sent off my email, and they accepted me and they let me in. And then when I was on this forum, it was all guys who were going out and they were trying different things. They were dating girls. They were, they were sharing notes essentially about what it is to be a guy dating in contemporary London back in, well, as I say, 2004, 2005. They were sharing notes. They were sharing experiences, stories, etc., etc. Friendships were formed. Guys bonded. People would find wings via that site. They would get together and go out together, go to clubs, go to parties, and basically just try all this different stuff and meet different girls, have some great experiences, and then share what they learned, share what they observed. So it was all fantastic stuff. And, in many ways, I look back at that time now and I kind of miss it, because what's happened since, of course, is that for a start, lots of things have happened. Social media's exploded, Instagram, Facebook, whatever else, TikTok, all of these things. Videos exploded as well. Back in that time, back in the day then, there wasn't really, I think YouTube had sort of just about started, but video wasn't the big thing that it is now. So, there wasn't really like infield videos, and there weren't videos like this with people talking about this stuff. It was all people like typing out their stories and their anecdotes and posting them into forums or posting them on blogs and things like that. But there was a sort of freshness about it. There was an underground sense about it. It was kind of exciting. Anyway, I digress. So I met various people through these boards, various guys who I became friends with, who I would go out with, spend time with. We go to the clubs, we do all the games together, swap notes, etc., etc. One guy that I met on there was an Italian gentleman, and I probably shouldn't give his real name, so let me try to think of a name that we can give him. Let's just call him Paul. Okay, so Italian dude called Paul, or Paulio. And I met him through the board, and we just really hit it off. But he was a very popular guy on this particular forum. He posted a lot. He was a very colorful character. A lot of people looked up to him, etc., etc. And he was posting about, he was doing day game, he was doing some night game. And we used to go to the mainstream places and things like this. There was a place called Tiger, where guys would go. Very mainstream, kind of disco bar, where, sort of cheap drinks during the week, lots of different girls. We'd all go there, like the really mainstream places. But this guy was into some other stuff. And it turns out that this guy was quite into the fetish sort of party scene. And he, as time went on, he started to post about it. And he started to post about going to these parties. And he'd say, I went to Torture Garden, which is one of the key parties in London for this kind of thing. So I go to Torture Garden, and, I met and I walked in there and I was making out with 3 girls. And he would post these incredible stories about, I met this girl and she was just wearing this like little latex dress. And 20 minutes later, we were together in the couples room. More on that later. And we were having sex, and it was amazing. It was this fantastic experience. And he was telling all these crazy stories, and my ears pricked up at this because I was like, this sounds really interesting. Because the other thing about nightlife is, as much as I love nightlife, as much as I love dance music, going to the clubs and everything, by the time I was 30, it had started to not pale exactly, but the other thing you have to bear in mind is I wasn't drinking at this point. I wasn't using any other substances. And so it does get a little bit boring just going to a nightclub and and you're just standing around completely sober. I've done it many, many times, but it starts to lose its appeal a little bit. And it occurred to me that, well, maybe this thing, maybe this space, going to these fetish parties, maybe that will be more interesting, because there'll be more stuff to sort of like look at, He says, Lesbos says, I thought you were doing a live stream with James Tusk. I am, which is why I'm doing this early today. I'm going to be doing that about 5 p.m. UK time, which I think is 1 p.m. EST. So yeah, watch out for that on James's channel. But yeah, so I just kind of thought, well, this is kind of interesting. And my curiosity was piqued because I've always been a very curious person. I've always liked to explore like subcultures, underground things, etc., etc. So one year, I think it was 2006 going into 2007, but I need to check the dates on that. But it was around that time. This guy, Paulio, had arranged to go to Tortuga on New Year's Eve, okay? And he was posting about it on the message board and everything. And I didn't have anything planned. I was at a loose end. And I thought, you know what? I might as well give it a go. Let's go and see what this thing is all about. Let's go and see what this fetish scene thing is all about. So I messaged him and I said, listen, Paulio, I'd be up for coming along. Let's sort it out. And he's like, yeah, sure. Come along, Troy. It'd be good. So I bought a ticket. And the tickets for these events, certainly Torchgun, is quite expensive. The ticket can be about £40. For New Year's Eve, it was probably even more than that. It could have been £50 or £60, which in dollars, I don't know, $80 or something. I mean, quite expensive, relatively expensive. But the event promised very high production. You know, they'd have performers, they'd have loads of decoration around the club, amazing light shows, amazing stage performances, all this kind of thing, big DJs, bloody, bloody, blah. So anyways, I pay the money and then New Year's Eve comes around. And of course, the big issue you've got to go to one of these things is, well, what are you going to wear? I didn't have any clothes that would suit the purpose of going to a fetish party. I had no idea what people would really wear to one of these things. I mean, I assumed some kind of like gimp outfit or something like that, which obviously I didn't have. But Paulio says, don't worry, come around to my place, come around to my flat. The group of guys, we're all going to meet up at my apartment before, so come around on New Year's Eve in the evening and I'll lend you some stuff. We'll get dressed there and then we'll all go down to the club together. So I was like, okay, sounds great. So I turn up and what he lends me was some sort of like, he showed me the various different things, but basically there were some sort of skinny kind of plasticky type trousers, or maybe like PVC or plasticky type trousers, black. And there were various different tops, but I kept it pretty simple. He had like this t-shirt, quite tight t-shirt, which had like a plasticky thing here. I think it had sort of like little things on the epaulets, like a sort of plasticky like epaulette type things. And so I chose that as well. And I thought, well, this is pretty damn cool. It's kind of rock and roll. He also lent me some accessories. I think he had a big belt thing, some necklaces, whatever. And I was like, awesome. This is like, this is cool. I mean, I'm kind of into this. It was kind of quite fun just to dress up, just to put something else on that was a little bit different to like normal, like jeans and a t-shirt. So I put that on. Now this guy, I mean, Paulio, this guy was off the hook. I mean, he's been off the hook in a way that I've never been. I mean, he would wear like outrageous outfit, huge like platform shoes, very skinny jeans, sometimes bare chested. Sometimes he had this thing like that went on his shoulders with big like feathers coming out of it. I mean, just crazy stuff. And he would wear eye makeup and have his hair all spiked and all of this kind of different stuff. He was a very flamboyant character. I was certainly at that point I was less so, but I was quite happy to get on board and to try some different clothes. And there were some other dudes as well who were coming along with us. I think there were about 5 of us or something like that went. And when it got to later in the evening, it was time to go to the club. We called taxis, and this was pre-Uber slightly, and we took the journey. And I remember it was a long journey because this guy lived in North London. He lived in King's Cross. At the time, we had to go all the way down to Brixton, which is the other side of town. Now, we set off quite late. I think it was something like 11 o'clock. And I remember the traffic was quite bad because New Year's Eve, a lot of traffic. And I was sitting in the taxi thinking, we're not even going to make the party by midnight. We were crawling along. It was a long way. I'm sitting there in the plastic trousers in the, whatever. I'm like, Jesus, But anyway, we get there, we get to the venue, and the venue was in and they've stopped using this now. But the venue was in an old church. Sacrilege. But it was an old church that had been reformatted as a nightclub. I think it was called Mass in Brixton. And we turned up there and we got in. We, waited in the queue a little bit. And I was a bit nervous because they're also, a torture garden, they're quite strict in terms of what you wear. You've got to wear something that looks like you are, you're in the scene. They don't want people who are just like there having a laugh. So I was a bit nervous, would we get in, even though we bought tickets, etc., etc. But it was fine. They let us in. And I walked into the club, and this was just prior to midnight. And I remember then just before midnight, there was the countdown, and it was, 10, 9, 8. And then it was, woo, Happy New Year. And they set off some cannons with paper explosions coming out of them and stuff like that. And it was all cool. But then as the party went back into full swing, what I was observing around me was basically it was like a normal house techno party. There was a DJ. They were playing some banging tunes. Everyone was dancing. Great light show, etc. The only difference from a normal club was that people were wearing basically different stuff, and what the girls were wearing was pretty interesting. And I remember very quickly I got dancing with one girl who was wearing a PVC nurse's outfit, just a white PVC dress. Pretty short. And I remember and we started to make out within about, I went up to her, I was like, hey, you look cool, dancing a little bit. Then we start making out. And I slipped my hands under the PVC nurses thing, and she was wearing no underwear underneath. And we fumbled around for a little bit, had a bit of fun, etc., etc. And then the club was so crowded. It was just like crazy. So, we sort of walked off, and then I lost that girl, never found her again. And I was going around the club, and there were just all these girls in these and look, complete transparency. Of course, you get a mixed bag at these kind of events. I mean, there were certainly some, let's say, more mature party goers who were perhaps a little bit less nubile and maybe wouldn't have quite attracted one's attention to the same degree. But there were plenty of very, very sexy young women wearing things like stockings and suspenders, wearing things just like underwear, or PVC or latex dresses and stuff like that. All very, very sexy stuff. Okay. And the main thing that I noticed was just how sort of sexually charged the atmosphere was, because everybody's there you're not going to go to a party like that unless you're kind of at least curious about something happening. And so there's incredibly, and everyone's walking around. They're not wearing very much. They're sort of just very, very sexual, a lot of eye contact, a lot of people, you could just see, and people getting together and all this kind of stuff. Very, very exciting kind of vibe. But it's not a free for all. I mean, I remember I got talking to one girl, and she was topless. I forget what she had on the bottom half, but she was just topless. Her breasts were showing, and she was dancing around and blah, blah, blah. And I got talking to her, and I remember she said to me, she kind of rejected me. She sort of said to me, oh, don't, have you been here before? And I was like, no. And she said, oh, you just don't get it. You don't get it because just because somebody's scantily clad, it doesn't mean they're here to hook up. You're kind of naive if you think that. And I was like, okay, whatever. But in a sense, she was right, because and this is something that we'll get to in a second. Because the other thing that people think about these kinds of parties is, well, if they get over there sort of oh my God, it's just really weird, and, it's going to be full of ugly old women and blah, blah, blah. If they get over that, then they can go to the next stage of delusion, which is to think, oh, it's just a free-for-all. All you do is turn up, and, you're going to meet, some girl's just going to fall on your phallus, and it's all just going to work immediately. It's all going to be wonderful. And that's not true either. And this is something I want to touch on in a minute, because actually the sexual marketplace, if you like, the rules of the sexual market are very, very clearly delineated in these places. And so when the girl said to me, she was saying, just because I'm topless, it doesn't mean that, I'm here to necessarily meet guys. And, fine. I mean, that's absolutely true. No doubt. But for her, it's also true that plenty of women do go to these events because they do want to meet guys and they do want to, and there's something sexy about this. There's something liberating about going to an event like that. And particularly for these girls, they're not wearing very much. They know that they're being checked out by all these guys. They've got that sort of feeling of power a little bit. Very exhilarating for them. And obviously for the guys, you're in a room surrounded by women who are, like I say, basically in their underwear, sometimes even less. I've been in like private rooms in these things where you get naked girls wandering around. I mean, just I've seen some crazy things in these clubs, as I say, both in London, in Berlin in particular, and also other places as well. It's off the hook, as Mac the Day Gamer might say, or Naughty Nomad. So on that New Year's Eve, I spent a lot of the rest of the night sort of walking around. I was never able to find the girl with the nurse's outfit again. And to be honest, I spent a lot of the rest of the night kind of getting politely rejected by people. I was doing a little bit of my night game, trying to make something happen. I think I probably got some other near misses, but nothing really stuck. And you get to that point, don't you? If you're out for an evening, you get to that point of like, it's like 4 a.m. or something. And I was like really tired. I've been up had quite a long day on New Year's Eve. This was New Year's Day, really tired. And you get to that point where you're sort of thinking, well, do you know what? I might just call it a night. I might just go home. And I nearly did. But then I just thought I'll do one last walk around. So I walked around the venue again, and I walked into this little bar area downstairs, and I see this really stunning girl standing by the bar. She's wearing like almost like a French maid kind of outfit. I mean, she's wearing a short skirt, stockings, suspenders, some kind of see-through lacy top. Young lady, long brunette hair, very pretty, very beautiful. And she's just standing by the bar on her own. And so I walk up and I'm like, hi, I'm Troy. Get chatting to her. And one thing leads to another. And we start to make out and bloody, bloody, blah. And a couple of things happened then because there was still a few hours of the night left. And one of the issues with night game is that if you meet somebody and there are still a few hours of the night left, then you have to make a call in terms of what you're going to do. Are you going to try and hang around with them until the end of the night so that you can then perhaps go home with them? Are you going to say, listen, great to meet you, let's exchange numbers, in which case you may never see them again? Or are you going to kind of, I don't know, just go say, all right, I'll see you later and try and meet them again later, which is a risky strategy. So I decided, because it was reasonably late now, after 4, I think, well, okay, I'm just going to hang around with this girl. And let's see what happens. So we hung around. We were like making out. We were dancing together, walking into the different rooms. She was trying to find her friends, which is always the perennial, issue with girls in clubs. And we were just going around having a good time, basically. And I remember we went into one room, and we were kind of one of the bigger dance rooms, and we were standing at the side of the dance floor making out. And then this other couple came up, and it was a somewhat older guy and woman, and they were like dancing together, and they were sort of like moving in on us, and the woman was sort of touching me, and the guy was kind of like trying to touch her and everything like that, and I entertained them for a bit. But in the end, I sort of grabbed the girl and we sort of went off in the other direction. And it was sort of like, because the other thing about these kind of environments is that everybody sort of assumes that it's a bit of a free for all, and a lot of people that go to these things who are kind of swingers, so people will go as couples, and they will want to find some action with other couples. Now, as it was, and listen, I'm all for experimentation. I've got no issue with that. But this particular couple, let's just say, I didn't feel they were adding any net value to the existing proposition, which was me with this very attractive girl. Then a not massively attractive, slightly older woman, plus her fella. To me, I couldn't really see what value that was going to add to the proceedings. So I decided to eject, and we went off somewhere else. But you get that kind of thing. You get people trying to sort of come in and get involved, if you like, which was quite amusing. And then later we went into another room, and this guy who was wearing these like leather chaps. But he's wearing leather chaps. If you don't know what leather chaps are, there's like leather trousers, but they've got like a hole cut out at the back. So this dude, there's like a hole cut out in the backside. And I kind of assumed this guy was gay because he was wearing this attire. But he wasn't, because he was very clearly attracted to the girl that I was with. And so then he was trying to hit on the girl, and he said to me, "Oh, do you want to share?" Again, I couldn't see how having this guy with wearing leather chaps involved was going to improve or augment my net pleasure in the situation. So again, I took the girl, and we ejected and left him to it. But you do get, and this is one of the things with these environments, you do get these people who want to sort of crash or join in or watch if you're doing something and all of that, and you've got to be prepared for this kind of stuff. So anyway, then we just hung out the rest of the night. And then she met up with her friends. One of them was was a gay guy who was like, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god," and like screaming and causing a lot of palaver and everything. I just hung in there, whatever. We took a taxi, and we ended up going back to her place, which was in New Cross in South London. And that was it. And then I spent the night with her, and it was all good. But I was exhausted the next day. It was a very, very tiring introduction to the new year, I can assure you, particularly when I hadn't drunk or taken anything, and all of these other people had. So life as a sober fetish clubber is a whole genre in itself. But so that was my first experience of this. And look, then when the dust settled and I'd sort of recovered from it, I looked back and I realized it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. It was fun, good music. I liked the fact that it was quite subversive. I liked the fact that there were basically loads of women walking around wearing very little. I liked the fact that there was that sexual charge in the atmosphere. I liked the fact that people, girls were willing to, indeed welcomed, really, doing things, getting quite intimate very quickly, because that was all in keeping with this sort of charged atmosphere that was going on in the place. However, after that, I didn't indulge as much. I think maybe I went again, but then I didn't go for quite a long time, because I got a girlfriend who wasn't interested in that kind of scene, and then I got another girlfriend who also wasn't interested in that kind of scene. So I didn't go back to Torture Garden or any of these clubs for a few years. But when I became single again from those two relationships, and I'm kind of at a lost end, I sort of think, well, that was quite good, and I was quite keen to explore again. So I started going back, and this time I started going to Torture Garden in London pretty regularly. Now, by this point, I was living in South London myself. They would often do the event in a place called Elephant and Castle, which people in London will know, in a venue that's now gone, called the Coronet. And for a couple of years, maybe more, maybe 3 years or something like that, I was pretty much every month, I would be at Torture Garden at the Coronet. And there was no secret about this. I would tweet about this a lot. I would share, content about this online. I wrote a ton of articles about it on my blog, some of which have been taken down now, but nevertheless, and then I ended up writing the book about it. I ended up writing 50 Shades of Game, which has got some of my best stories from that period in the book, as well as some instructions about, how you can get into that scene yourself if you want to. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. But there's a few observations I want to now make about the scene. the other thing to say is that I would also sometimes travel to Berlin in Germany, and I would go to Kit Kat Club there as well. And in tandem with this, I started going to a party in London called Killing Kittens. Okay, now Killing Kittens is not really a fetish event. Killing Kittens is slightly different. It's and perhaps we'll do a different show about it because it's more of a swingers event, if you like. But the feel was sort of vaguely similar. Killing Kittens was an event by their tagline is by women for women. So it was run by or founded by a female entrepreneur, and it was basically a sex party in London where people would get together and get jiggy with it. But again, it was this same kind of environment where you get all these women walking around wearing underwear, high heels, blah blah blah. So I got into both of them, and this went on for years. And often they'd be on the same weekend. So I do Killing Kittens on the Friday, and then I do Torture Garden on the Saturday. I mean, fantastic times. I've had many high points throughout my life, and many high points in terms of my career, I suppose, in this space. But that was one of the highlights, really, because I mean, just the excitement, just the glamour of it, just the kind of the frisson of going to these places and these kind of all these incredible exotic girls in all these amazing outfits or lack of outfits, and just the speed with which. Sometimes you would walk into the club and you could be talking to the girl, and then 10 minutes later, you would be indulging in some sort of erotic act with her. Like literally, it was so quick. And the reason for that was because that is what these events are set up for. They are set up for people to, and there's that excitement, there's that undercurrent of sexuality, and the people that go to these events, they want to have a great experience, they want to meet, they want to be sexual together, and if you put yourself in the right place at the right time, you can harness that. It taught me a lot. And I want to now go into some of the lessons that this scene has taught me, and some of the things that we can take perhaps from this more generally, because I appreciate that not everyone's going to be into this. I appreciate not everyone's going to be booking their ticket to go to Torture Garden. And anyway, with the pandemic, goodness knows when we'll be able to do that again. But as I say, there are certain things that I think are important to draw from this. The first thing I would say about the fetish and the BDSM scene in general is that, you want to be going to the good venues. You want to be going to the good clubs. And as I say, Torture Garden, Kit Kat Club, Insomnia in Berlin, I would certainly recommend those three. Killing Kittens in London also, and then various others after that. But you want to be going to the good parties, because people do correctly make this point that, there are parties where the clientele are pretty ropey. You want to avoid those. But assuming you're going to the good parties, the first thing to say is that actually that scene is less weird than you think, because people get put off because they're like, oh my God, it's going to be so weird. I just had that's interesting. That's very strange. I just got an email from Insomnia in Berlin, actually, then. I don't know what that's about. But yeah, so the first thing is it's not as weird as you think. And you can participate on any level you want to, right? I mean, you've got to wear something to get yourself in. So as a guy, you can wear a pair of leather trousers, pair of PVC trousers, some sort of shiny, tight T-shirt. That's kind of it, really. You don't need to go super weird. You don't need to go wearing some sort of ball in your mouth and like some gimp outfit or something like that. You do see some people who do get on board with that. I'm not one of them. But you need to do something to get yourself through the door. But once you're through the door, because what you have to remember, of course, is that these events are all very much based on consent, right? You're not doing anything that's non-consensual. And that applies to everybody. So you're not walking in there and you're forced to do something really crazy and really weird and really strange. A lot of people... The other thing as well, like Torture Garden is basically a dance club, okay? So you can just go there and just dance all night. Just listen to music, dance all night, wear your kinky outfit, see some girls in some kinky outfits. That's the level of your engagement, right? Beyond that, what can happen is that you can just use it. And a lot of guys, I can assure you, there are a lot of Chelsea-type guys who go to Torture Garden who don't strike me as hardcore fetishists. So I don't believe that these guys are really, really into this stuff. But they're going there because there's a lot of attractive girls there and they're on the pull. Okay. And so you can do the same thing. You can go and your aim is just to meet girls. Okay. And you go around, you talk to girls in very much the same way as you would in a normal nightclub, except that because of the setup, it's much more likely that something's going to happen on that particular evening. Okay, even within the venue itself. And a lot of guys, I can assure you, go for that reason. And here's the other thing, right? I've talked about the women in terms of attractiveness because this perception that they're all going to be ugly, they're all going to be old, it's going to be horrendous. Not true in the venues I go to anyway. But the same thing goes for the guys. And when you're in big cities like London, Berlin, you've got very, very high value guys. And what this means is that the sexual marketplace within these clubs is as stringent and ruthless as you will see anywhere. And in fact, possibly, or the old, possibly more strict and more ruthless than you'll see in the real world. And I would always say in my articles at the time, when I was going to these things, I've learned more about the sexual marketplace from going to Torture Garden and killing kittens than I've probably learned from years and years of just going to regular parties. And the reason for that is quite simple. You've got a bunch of women who are looking for fun and for sex, and you've got a bunch of guys there for the same reason, some of whom are very high value, some of whom are sort of medium, if you like, and then some of whom are right at the bottom of the pile, omegas, if you like. So you've got the alphas at the top, you've got the people who are sort of in the middle, and then you've got the omegas down the bottom. And this is going to fuel all your favorite negative nihilistic fantasies. But I have to say, guys, the reality of it is that it is the Chads who are getting most of the buy-in, most of the action. I don't put myself in that category. I think I'm somewhere more near the middle, to be honest. But I have been consistently successful in those environments. I think largely because I understand the dynamics of human interaction. That is to say, I understand game, if you like. So I've always had a good time at these venues. But actually, when you look at the guys who are hooking up and getting perhaps the highest quality women or the attention of the highest quality women, you are certainly looking at guys who are chads. You are looking at tall guys, built guys, good-looking guys, etc., etc. But that doesn't mean that if you're in pretty good shape and you present well and you understand dynamics, you understand flirtation, you understand how to sexualize an interaction, etc., that you can't get, traction yourself. And that's certainly something I was able to do. There are also guys who are sadly right down the bottom of the scale. And I've literally, particularly in Berlin, I've joked to friends about this. You get guys in Berlin who are omegas and they don't even try. There's these leather couches in Kit Kat in Berlin, and you get these dudes, and some of them are just like totally naked. They're sitting there, they've taken a bunch of pills or whatever, they're off their head, and they're just sitting there kind of just watching, and they're not even trying to approach. They're not even, they're not even trying to get the attention of any of the women because they just know it's a lost cause. They're just sitting there despairingly, manipulating themselves and just watching the scene go by. And some of them seem quite happy to be doing that. And then you've got the chads who are, getting the spoils, if you like. And then you've got the other people sort of in the middle with varying degrees of success, depending on their boldness, depending on the way that they put themselves across, et cetera, et cetera. And it's here, and it's in that section in the middle where a knowledge of game, if you like, really, really can make the difference. Because as I say, I think the reason that, I've got a lot of cool stories to tell from these environments is not because I'm Chad, it's because I know game and, whatever. But and again, I don't want to fuel nihilistic fantasies here, but it has to be said that these environments do lay out the stark realities of the dating marketplace very, very clearly. But like I always say, that doesn't mean that it can't be hacked. That doesn't mean that there aren't still opportunities if you are entrepreneurial in the dating space, which is what I always advise people to be. Okay. So yes, so this idea that you can go to a party like this, or you can go to a swingers party or something, and it's just going to be a free for all, is a fantasy. Because if you turn up looking like a sack of excrement, then you're not going to get buy-in. Okay, so you've got to do the basics. You've got to make sure you're in shape. You've got to make sure you're lean. Looking cool. Bloody blah. You've got social acumen, etc., etc. However, there's a couple of things in terms of sexuality now to say about this. The first thing is to say these environments are also very good places to take girls to if you are dating the girl. I'm not saying take your wife or something. That's not, or somebody that you're in a really long-term serious relationship with. But if you're just kind of dating girls, just kind of having fun with them and things like that, taking them to environments like this, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun because you allow her to let her wild side out. You allow her to play that role for one night where she's somebody else. She's that naughty sexual kind of creature. And that's a lot of fun. I've had a lot of fun with that in my time. And the other thing as well, I think that's valuable or has been valuable for me about going to these environments is that it allows you to become this is going to sound lame, but get in touch with your own sexuality. That is to say, become comfortable in sexualized environments, become comfortable with exuding sexuality. And that carries over into your normal interactions. So into your normal, like vanilla dating, where you're meeting a girl in the local wine bar or the local lounge. Okay. If you've had all of this experience, then you can sort of, you can sort of channel it. Okay. And then bring that sexuality into your regular into your regular meets with girls, maybe even through Tinder or something like that. You meet up with her in the bar, but you're exuding that sexuality, and that's something that's very, very important to manifest. So it's good to go to these environments just so that you've got that little extra string to your bow. You've got that little extra kind of vibe to you, which really, really helps you to to perform better on dates or in social situations. What else is there to say about this? I mean, 50 Shades of Grey pretty much underlines the fact, because look at the massive popularity of that book. It pretty much underlines the fact that many women, and not all women, but many, many women, like some form of domination. Okay. Now, there is also the other way around, where the guy is submissive and the woman is dominant, but that's not something I've explored. That's not a paradigm that I'm have any knowledge of or any interest in. For the most part, girls do like some sense of domination, and going to parties like this and sort of just playing with this stuff. Even if we're playing with a little bit of spanking or a little bit of play, as they call it, you can kind of get used to that dynamic. And that's really, really valuable as well. And again, you can bring that into your regular dating life, if you like, where you're not going to these parties and you're meeting girls in different ways, but you can still channel a little of that, bring a little bit of that in. And that's been something that's been really useful for me from attending these parties as well. Yeah, and I think really that's kind of a lot of what I've got to say on the subject at the moment. I mean, if you want to read more about this, because I've got loads and loads of crazy stories and lots of weird and wonderful experiences that happened to me. If you want to look at this a little bit further, then you should definitely read my book, 50 Shades of Game. Now this, here we go. Okay, so that is my book on this subject matter, 50 Shades of Game, a step-by-step blueprint for attracting and seducing the sexiest women in the BDSM and fetish scene. And that book's been out since 2018. It's part memoir and it's part instructional guide, but there are loads and loads of juicy and fun stories in there of things that I've experienced, things that I've seen. And listen, I mean, I have seen some of the craziest stuff in these environments that you can imagine. And I think that's why they became so sort of compulsive, really, in the sense that, you are going to this secret world where, you've got all of these girls who are basically there in order to have a really, really fun time. And it's not just one type of girl. This is perhaps another lesson from this, I suppose. You might think, well, it must be all low quality women who go to these kinds of things. No high quality woman would ever attend an event like that. But that's not true, because actually those parties, again, Torture Garden, Kit Kat Club, very, very, very diverse in terms of the people you meet there. I've met lawyers, I've met doctors, I've met PhDs, I've met waitresses, I've met strippers, the whole gamut. Okay, so don't be under the illusion that you will never meet, high quality women in a place like that, because that's absolutely just not true. It's nonsensical. I've met entrepreneurs, I've met writers, I've met journalists, all different types of people. Okay. Just out for a fun time, because look, our programming, our wiring is all the same. We are all basically animals. We all want to have fun. We all want to get together and, do all of that good stuff. And, somebody's qualifications and background doesn't really enter into that. In fact, oftentimes the women who are more restrained in public actually have more of a shadow side that they would like to let out at a party like this. Okay. So listen, I hope at some point we get over this whole damned virus thing, and we're able to sort of go out and go to environments where people can get together and have fun again. I've got no idea when that will be. I've been told that in Berlin they are starting to do some stuff again. A friend of mine over there has told me that I'm told that they are experimenting with some kind of parties with face masks and things like this, which actually wouldn't be so bad a thing at a fetish club, right? Wearing a face mask. So look, let's hope that it comes back. Let's hope in 2021 this is able to emerge again. But it got to the point where really the only kind of nightlife I liked was these parties, because you would go to these things and there was always crazy people there. You'd always get these weird sexually, kind of very fast sexual encounters, the great performances, great stage shows, great theatre to it, makes the average nightclub look pretty damn boring. So I've always had a great time at these things. And I got so much material as well, guys, I tell you. Like for the blog, literally on those weekends when I was going to Torture Gun and also to Killing Kittens, I would like that would just be 2 blog posts done. I saw this crazy thing. This girl did that. This guy did this. Bloody, bloody, blah. Amazing. So I hope to be able to get back into the venues and to create more content for you guys about this. And now that we're doing video and we're doing live streams, I can sort of give you. You can't really record video in those places or take pictures, but I can. I can sort of give you the the face-to-face lowdown as well going forward. The seedy underbelly of London. The seedy underbelly of London. Exactly. Lesbos says, when you said you saw guys manipulating themselves, was that a euphemism for something else? Yes, it was. Suleiman says, I wouldn't like to fall over in Berghain. You never know what you will get up with. That's true. So Berghain is slightly separate to what I'm talking about here. Berghain is kind of a similar vibe. But Berghain is more of just a mainstream, well, not mainstream, but it's a techno club, isn't it? The difference with places like TG, Torture Garden, and Insomnia and Kit Kat Club is that they are geared up to some sort of fetish type activities. And Berghain is, I think, as well a bit. You've got those like cavernous little areas by the dance floor. And I think downstairs you've certainly got dungeony type bits, but this is another thing you get like Torture Gun. You'll get rooms where there's equipment where people can like spank each other. So there might be sort of like There are places where you can tie people up. I've seen stocks in there where people can go into stocks. There are sort of paddles and like whips and like spanking equipment, so people can do all of that kind of stuff. There's actually equipment set aside for that. I suppose now it would have to all be like COVID secure and everything, but so there's kind of equipment for that kind of thing. And the other thing that you tend to get in these parties is a couples room. So when you are, you're with your girlfriend or you're with the girl that you met on that particular night or whatever, you queue up and you get to go in this room. And then you go in the room and there are lots of people undressed, doing lots of naughty stuff, and you can join in, or not necessarily join in with them, although that happens. But you and your girl can just get down to whatever you want to get down to. And then, if you want to get involved with the other people, there's that option open as well. So pretty crazy stuff. As I said, I've seen some pretty unbelievable stuff in some of these venues. Very amusing, a lot of fun. And and like I say, I mean, channeling that sexuality is so key, because if you've got that sexuality, you can bring it out into your interactions, even in a more normal setting. That's really, really valuable. Really, really is. What else have we got? Did you meet the Queen to be? Which one's that? What, the Kate? No. But Secret Society, 100%, man. Secret Society par excellence. Lesbos says, I bet these parties are expensive to get in. Well, Kit Kat isn't. Kit Kat, because all the clubs in Berlin aren't very expensive. I think Kit Kat's only about €10. And Kit Kat is great. Torture Garden is quite expensive. It's about 40 or 50 pounds, which I guess is about $60 or $70. So yeah, they are quite expensive. Jack says, I can imagine as a guy, you need to be cool when going to parties like that. If the girls are naked, yeah, 100%. I mean, you like I say, you can't just walk up and be, look like a bunch of crap and expect to, just get, have an amazing sexual experience, because that's just not going to happen. You've got to bring a bit more to the party. Did you meet Chris and Neil Hamilton? No. Would love to, though. Did you get dressed up for one of these events and they said not kinky enough? Not really, no. I mean, like, Torture Garden is stricter. Kit Kat, in Berlin, I think is less strict for some reason. I think, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, all the clubs in Berlin are quite strict. Having said that, I think Kit Kat is a little bit less strict because there's also this kind of more laid back vibe in Berlin, and also it's a weekly event. In London at Torture Garden, it's only monthly, and they are quite strict. So you could buy a ticket and get turned away. So a mate of mine bought a ticket, and then he just decided to go dressed as a woman because he thought, I'll just dress as a woman, that'll get me in. So he turned up in this bad drag outfit, and he got rejected. So yeah, you need to take care but usually like a pair of like shiny trousers, some sort of PVC plastic or something like that, which you can get pretty cheaply online, and a tight t-shirt will get you in. You don't have to go too overboard, to be honest, but you've got to you just got to be mindful of their dress code. While parties, clubs, risk of STD, pregnancy. Well, there are these things called condoms, which I believe are pretty effective. Kind of new form of contraception, which I suggest everyone looks into and investigates. So yeah. How loud are these venues? Hey, too bloody loud. I suggest staying at home with a cup of hot chocolate instead. No, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you've just got to you just get used to it. You've got to speak loudly and project your voice, and sometimes you need to lean in a little bit. I know Rivellino would kill me for saying that, but so you just got to put your ear in here so you can hear. It's an opportunity to get close to the lady that you are talking to, but there's no easy answer to that, I don't think. James says, what's your take on Flash Game? Best version of yourself, appearance in the scene versus charisma technique, old school. approach. Well, like I say, I mean, this scene is large. There is a lot of emphasis on looks and on physique and stuff like that, because when you're in a situation, I mean, if you're at basically like a sex party and there's a lot of women who are not wearing very much, and many of them are, interested in casual sex, and then you've got a bunch of guys who are there for the same reason, then this is where the sort of nihilistic black pill kind of vision of the sexual marketplace really comes to light, because the women are kind of selecting on, well, who's going to be the best, short-term prospect, and so largely they are kind of looking at looks and things like that. So you want to look as good as you can, you want to be in shape, all that kind of stuff, but you also want to be, like the charisma and the game type stuff definitely helps. It definitely, if there's, if you're somewhere in the middle and you're competing with other guys who are somewhere in the middle, and you've got the game and you've got the charisma, then you're going to win. You're not necessarily going to beat Chad, who's at the top, but you're certainly going to win over the dude who hasn't got charisma. So, you always need to, work on your charisma and your stuff. Can guys even pick up chicks over there and have sex within after 5 minutes? Yes, absolutely. What are your favorite European cities for day game? London, Prague, Budapest, Barcelona, and maybe Berlin. I mean, Berlin's not a great day game city, but just to make a fifth one, I'll say Berlin because it's such a cool place anyway. All right, anyway, guys, listen, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you got a little bit of an insight into the seedy world of fetish and BDSM game. Nothing to be scared of. It's a lot of laughs. You will meet some if you go to the right places, and I completely accept that there are some clubs that you wouldn't want to touch with a barge pole, but if you go to the good places, you will meet some very attractive girls, and if you've got a bit of something about you, then you will be able to have a lot of fun times. If you want to find out more about this, then do grab my my book, which is called 50 Shades of Game. You can see it here on Amazon. I have stuck a link for it down in the description, so look out for that. Yeah, and that's it. So I will be going live with James Tusk a little bit later on, 5 p.m. UK time, which is 1 p.m. EST. That'll be on his channel. So go and look for James Tusk's channel, and we will be chatting about day game and all that other good stuff. And that's it, really. I will leave it there for now, but we will be back on Wednesday. I'll be back at the normal time of 11:30. No, it's going to be 12:30. No, sorry. I'll be back at the normal time of 11:30 a.m. EST on Wednesday. I'm going to have to change my time here because we've changed our clocks. Very confusing. But yeah, so 11:30 a.m. EST on Wednesday. We'll be back with CAD Live again. CAD Live, by the way, is based on Charisma and Dating Academy, which is my flagship course of the same name. That'll be out again on the 1st of December. So please do hit subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications bell, give me a like, etc., and do also get onto my free daily email list. You will see the link for that below. I will leave it there for now. Bye-bye.